Welcome back to another explainer. Right off the bat, we're jumping into a truly fascinating paradox today. Have you ever met someone, or hey, maybe you are this someone, who is just an absolute powerhouse of productivity, but secretly, they're really just a massive overthinker whose brain literally refuses to find an off switch? Well, welcome to the analytical engine of Mercury in the sixth house. It's this incredible placement that takes all that nervous, buzzing energy and brilliantly, almost seamlessly, turns it into a daily to-do list.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Mental overload hides behind productivity. This single, powerful sentence is absolutely the secret engine driving that constant need to get things done. It's not really just about raw ambition or climbing the career ladder. It's about a mind that's just constantly buzzing, using daily productivity as this brilliant but honestly utterly exhausting disguise for an overactive brain.
Now, if you have this placement, I gotta say, your work ethic and your sheer intelligence, they're honestly incredible. Mercury in the sixth house represents a mind that's classically linked to running through work, routines, problem solving, and zooming in on the absolute finest of details. You drastically prefer processing tasks over, say, just sitting quietly and being idle. It's an analytical engine that literally never, ever stops running. Instead of shutting down when it gets tired, it simply takes all that relentless thinking and neatly organizes it into checked-off tasks.
Section 1, the productivity illusion, staying mentally busy by default. So, for this specific mind, staying mentally busy isn't some conscious, deliberate choice you make over your morning coffee. Nope, it's the absolute default setting of your operating system. If there isn't a problem actively waiting to be solved, the mind feels strangely unmoored. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's going on. On the left, we see what it looks like to everyone else in your life. Someone who's highly productive, a total master at juggling a million small tasks without breaking a sweat. You look like a total superhero of efficiency. But the reality over on the right, that's a mind endlessly cycling through analysis. You're constantly planning, making these tiny micro-adjustments, which builds up this very real, very quiet mental fatigue over time that nobody else actually sees.
So the really crucial point here is how this mind handles the sheer messiness of being human. Instead of typical emotional processing, life is processed through work, routines, and problem solving. Basically, work becomes your primary thinking outlet. When life gets complicated or emotionally heavy or just totally chaotic, you don't necessarily sit down and cry about it or meditate. You use tasks as a filter to handle and organize those complexities. You'll deep clean the entire kitchen, rewrite a massive quarterly spreadsheet, or finally fix that leaky faucet. That is your totally unique way of processing the world.
And this intense, hyper-practical focus really trickles down into absolutely everything you do. Take a look at these 3 key traits. First, high detail sensitivity. Small errors or inefficiencies that literally everyone else misses, they stand out to you like a flashing neon sign. Second, your communication is deeply tied to usefulness. You naturally speak, write, and think in terms of, okay, how does this fix something? And third, learning best by doing. Abstract theory just doesn't stick for you unless you pair it with hands-on repetition in the real world. You really just need to physically touch the system to understand the whole shebang.
Moving into section 2, the optimization obsession, fixing what isn't broken. We all know that feeling of wanting things to be a little better, right? But with this placement, you kind of have an inability to just leave well enough alone. Even when something is working perfectly fine, you honestly cannot help but wonder, could this work just a tiny bit better if I tweaked it? It triggers this 3-step loop that runs on total autopilot. Step 1, analyze the systems and workflows around you. Step 2, boom, you find a tiny inconsistency or a flaw. It could be how the dishwasher is loaded or how a major corporate project is managed, it doesn't matter. Step 3, you immediately try to improve and optimize it, even when it works perfectly fine. It's this endless, rapid-fire instinctive loop of over-engineering your daily habits simply because your brain completely craves the stimulation of the fix.
Which brings us to section 3, the invisible burnout, when the engine runs hot. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how exactly that stress manifests. When you're constantly humming at that incredibly high frequency, perpetually analyzing and fixing everything in your path, well, there's a harsh, hidden reality that eventually catches up with you. The engine can only run hot for so long before the internal temperature hits the red line. But mental stress here doesn't necessarily look like your traditional panic or a dramatic meltdown. It actually disguises itself right inside your routines. It shows up as disrupted sleep, mostly because your brain is busy sorting files at 3 a.m., It shows up as scattered focus, because let's face it, you have way too many mental tabs open. And it shows up as compulsive planning, where you try to tightly control your rising anxiety just by hyper-organizing tomorrow.
And unfortunately, this leads to the ultimate warning. There is a massive, massive risk of burnout from an invisible mental load. Why is it invisible? Well, because the thinking feels productive. You don't realize you're carrying around 1,000 pounds of mental weight because every single pound felt like a useful, necessary, totally practical task at the time. So the big takeaway here is that you probably won't even notice the overload until your energy completely and very suddenly just drops right off a cliff.
So I want to leave you with this final, incredibly provocative question to chew on. Are you actually optimizing your life, or are you just running from an idle mind? It really is the ultimate paradox of Mercury in the 6th house. Is your relentless hustle a genuine superpower, or is it just a brilliantly productive coping mechanism to avoid sitting in silence? Take that thought with you today. Let that amazing analytical engine of yours rest for just a moment if you can, and I will see you on the next explainer.